Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Desolation Sounds podcast. My name is Stephen Hook, and this is a podcast celebrating everything to do within the world of alternative music, be that rock, punk, metal, or extreme metal. Merry Boxing Day to one and all. The best part about Boxing Day, it means Christmas is over, and we don't have to deal with it anymore. Coming up on this week's show is literally nothing but the first half of this year's Desolation Sounds podcast top 20 albums of the year. This week we're counting down 20 from 11, and then next week will be 10 till 1 because talking for about 2 hours will be difficult, and I have to go home for Christmas because it's currently Christmas Eve, and I still have to deal with Christmas. I have, for that reason as well, I've purposely foregone looking up news and new announcements and that kind of shenanigans because there's a lot to go through. The only bits of news that I've seen worth mentioning is Five Finger Death Punch drummer. I keep wanting to call him Jeremy Renner. Jeremy Spencer? We'll go with Spencer. He's announced that he's leaving the band because citing medical issues. I think he's got a bad back. And now former Machine Head drummer Dave McClain has rejoined Sacred Reich. I think that's it. Only two things that stick out in my head. But I'll pick up on news a bit more frequently in the new year. Before we get on with 20 down to 11, a few shout outs because A, everyone loves a good shout out. B, trying to pick 20 albums was very fucking difficult. So, the top scoring non rock, metal, punk, whatever you want to call it, alternative music, the highest seeding album from that world, from not outside that world, fuck me. It starts already. Iridescence by Brockhampton. I listened to, I think it's 1999 Wildlife, and it was a song where when I first heard it, it was really, really good. Just based on the back of the hype, I listened to the two Kendrick Lamar albums for the first time. Excuse me, last year. So after I finished with them, listened to the Brockhampton single because I heard a lot of stuff going about them, and at the start, I really, really enjoyed that song. As the years gone on, I've realised that song is very okay. It does get quite boring when you listen to it over and over again, as do most songs. But yeah, I just thought it was a bit meh now, and that doesn't help by the fact that Iridescence is fucking phenomenal. It's I think this. What did I find? I put it at 21, so it's literally just outside. That's how much I enjoyed it. It's got. I feel there's enough in here to satisfy old and newer hip hop fans. I'm not well versed in hip hop. I won't lie. But there are songs which are very laid back and mellow and quite R&B, and there's songs that are a bit more upbeat and poppy, and there are songs that are very much more grime, dirty, put your grills in your teeth, put up hand signs kind of thing. I'm so painfully white. Yeah, Brockhampton with Iridescence. Next, completely other side of it, I'm going to call them Sludge. They don't spell it right, but I'm going to call them Sludge. Sluggdge. Esoteric Malacology. Don't know what that means. Really, really techie death metal band. Really, really good. Spent a good portion of this year in the top 20 bracket. And it is, again, I've said it, I'll go into a bit more detail with my relationship with Pog later. I've touched on it in the past. It keeps you hooked and it keeps you interested the entire time. And right now, all I can't get out of my head that bass tone in, I think it's, they've got weird one. I think it's called War Squid, something like that. Something about squid. Just the bass tone in that way, he's just goes off, and it is fucking great. The long shot with Lovers for Losers. Well, in my honest opinion, the best thing Billy Joe Armstrong from the Green Head has done since 21st Century Breakdown. I really like that album. At me. The Human Project with Clarion Call. I kinda helped with this. Very minimally. I recommended them an artist for their album artwork. That's my legacy. This is really good if you're a big fan of that techie punk that's coming through. Like OG Rise Against is my always go to comparison. Really, really fun album. And now on the track with a new kind of horror. Basically, the sound of the apocalypse. It's fucking good. It. So I started with Desideratum, and is it new? No, it's not. New kind of horror is a new one. Look up. But start with that, and Desideratum is fucking great. It's everything that I asked for extreme metal, like the big, powerful music with like the cases of melody. The whole Whole of the Law carried that on. Just found it, and I think this Whole of the Law I heard it more in, but the falsetto he brings in is fucking creepy. I think New Kind of Horror is a step down from Desideratum and the Whole of the Law, but I still think it's a fantastic album either way. Panic at the Disco, Pray for the Wicked. I don't understand how they can do it so well and Fall Out Boy can do it so fucking wrong. Like, so very painfully wrong. I hate Fall Out Boy. I really enjoy Panic at the Disco. Spanish love songs. I've talked about it a little bit when I was talking about Basement. Really good, somehow uplifting, somehow incredibly sad emo pop punk album. Very recommended with this new age of pop punk of emo that's going on. And lastly, an album that spent up until I think November in the top 20 bracket. Must be a bit soon. No, a lot of these albums came out. Yeah, so it must have spent. It's up until like October, November time in that top 20 talking point. Shining, the Swedish one, not the Norwegian one, because the Norwegian one made me cry. The Swedish Shining with. Oh, it's in Swedish. What's Swedish for 10? It would be. Tio vari utan flock. I don't know what that means. I just know a little bit of Swedish and how to pronounce things, but very depressive. You've never heard of them before. It's very hard that if you're into the extreme metal world and you haven't heard of these, it's quite unusual. But they are depressive black metal. They used to be quite raw. Now they've got very like much more produced sound, which is what I really enjoy in extreme metal. The opening song, which again is something in Swedish, which I'll have to quickly look up. It is so punk rock. Oh fuck me. Svart Ostoppa Eld. Oh fuck me, I don't know what that means, but such a big like punk rock main riff than that. It's really, really great. And there's also two covers. You've got In the Cold Light of Morning, which I can't remember who the original singer is, but that's haunting as shit. And equally haunting is Cry Little Sister, which is a cover of the. Oh God, I can't even remember what film it's off. But Cry Little Sister is the big one. It's not saving there. Yeah, Cry Little Sister is a big one. It was with the film with Donald Sutherland? We'll go with that. Either way, the two covers, very low end and spooky and very like dark folk. And then you've got the rest of the album, which is very abrasive, very extreme black metal, but with a really good production value on it. Definitely recommend, etc. There's also a weird piano ballad in there, which is great fun. Cool. On to the main event then. So number 20 is Between the Buried and Me with Automata 1. Automata, Potato, Patata. It is album number 8 from the US tech metal band, and it is the first of 2 albums that they released in 2018. I'll discuss Automata 2 in just a bit. Between the Buried and Me have been a little bit everywhere with their discography. They started off as quite a... not quite a very techy death metal, deathcore band. Eventually started bringing in more musical traits, which sort of borderline the avant-garde around the time of Colours and The Great Misdirect. They went to almost like a straightforward prog rock sound for Coma Ecliptic. Tommy Giles Rogers really cut back the harsh vocals, it was predominantly cleans. And then for the diehards who like that like extremeness to the sound, it was kind of a bit 50-50, but for newer fans, having that technicality, that good songwriting that Between the Buried and Me are known for, really brought in a new audience. So that leads us to this. And as I said before, my problem with prog, I might have discussed it before, is prog metal for me is such an intelligent genre. Everyone who is associated, or I feel like everyone associated with that progressive sound, no matter if it's prog rock or prog metal or like something techy or mathcore or whatever, they have been taught their instrument from grades or like being taught specific scales or what have you. It is a very, very intelligent genre, and I'm thick as shit. For me, this is the reason why like more punk rock things and more aggressive things appealed to me because you were in and out within a few minutes. With a lot of prog music, you're there for it's an 8 minute song and there's like a 2 minute keyboard solo and there's like a minute long bass bit and you've got to sit there and take it all in. And it's a similar reason why I can't read books anymore. I can't just sit there and do this one thing. I've got to, if I'm watching a film, I need to just be doing something on my phone, or if I'm listening to music, I need to be playing a game. I need that might be a commentary on modern millennials. I don't really know, nor do I give a shit, but that's just like how I take in music. And I don't know, I feel like every single time there's a big prog metal album, I keep batting it away, batting it away, batting it away until I finally cave in. But this time with Between a Bear and Me, because I had heard so much about them in the past, everyone goes nuts for colours. The little bits of Coma Clip that I listened to, I actually quite enjoyed. I figured I'd give this a go, and I had tried to listen to colours before. And admittedly, it was a few years ago when I didn't have quite a good a palette for music, but this is easily a lot more accessible than Colours. Bearing in mind, Colours was a very uber tech death metal tech metal album. This still has all those progginess to it and all the like extremity to it, but it is much more easier for first time listeners for people just getting into Between the Buried and Me. I'd easily say Tommy Giles has one of the most sought after and underappreciated vocal styles in music. The way he can easily bounce between such a tender, softly spoken voice to a vicious, demonic little scream to even maniacal. In the song Yellow Eyes, it's he just chants, not chants, but just eerie sings back at you, "Yellow Eyes," or the word "yellow," and fucking Thingy Martin from Coldplay would shit himself if this was the yellow got presented to him. And Tommy Giles, well, I think Tommy Giles Rogers, big pardon. He also acts as the keyboardist for this album. I don't know if he's done it before, but for this he is. And he is so intelligent with how to use the keyboard in this album. It's so hard to oversaturate the keyboard sound, like put too much synth in so that it masks everything else. Some people make it too much at the forefront of the sound. What have you. He knows exactly when to put keyboards in and knows exactly when to draw the keyboard sound back out again. In like the opener, Condemned to the Gallows, fuck, just absolutely tears and rips through genres left and right. There are times when it is very old school death metal, and there are times where it borderlines power metal, and I do love me some yes, I do love me some cheesy power metal. That's what I wanted to say. That's what I said. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a bit in the I think it is in Content to the Gallows when I was saying about the like maniacal vocal style. It's sort of like low end drum, like a vicious Marilyn Manson squall at parts, and it's really quite unnerving if you just listen to that on headphones. Pairing this with Automata 2, Automata 2 is also a very, very good album, and I think as much as I prefer Automata 2 as a whole, between the two albums, Voice of the Trespass on number 2 is the best song between both of them. But as good as that song is, I feel 2 is for the long time between the Bury Me fans because there's a lot more techie, a lot more death metal, a lot more things going on. And 1 is for people like me, people just listening to Between the Buried and Me properly for the first time. If you dig Opeth, I keep comparing a lot of bands at the moment to Ishan, but Ishan is so vast and explorative. Opeth, Ishan, or if you're into like the newer age sort of thing, and might have missed Between the Buried and Me like I did, and you know of a band called Distrage or Distrage, Italian tech metal band, definitely would recommend going onto this. Hugely great, hugely proggy, hugely bleh, fucking great. Between the Buried and Me, Automata 1. Cool, so I'm going to take a quick sip of tea. Lovely. Okay, on to album number 19 then. Will you go on the fucking coaster? That's not the name of the album. The album is Too Far Gone, and it is by Cane Hill. Cane Hill? Cane Hill. Fuck me. Why can I never speak in words? It is a sophomore album from the American new metalcore 4-piece, and it's the follow-up to Smile, which you might think is a happy album. It's not. It is. It was an explosive debut, lots of new metal worship, lots of Korn in there, fucking shit tons of Slipknot in there as well. And there's much. I don't quite understand this because new metal is kind of making a. Well, not kind of. It is making an absolute return in the past 5 years or so, and it's been fucking great for nostalgia boy like me. And they keep trying to distance themselves away from that sound. I don't understand why, because everything about this album screams a new age Slipknot to me. Elliot Witt, the lead singer, has such a command and such an awareness on his voice to the point where it almost eclipses what he did in Smile. It can go from, again, that like low end, almost spoken word Manson-esque delivery all the way up to the most extreme parts of Corey Taylor, to the point where how he sings on Singing in the Swamp, I made comparisons to Soundgarden when I was listening to it the other day. It's so like mostly in the chorus, the way it just sort of like builds and builds, and then you just got this long melodic bit, and he's quite. Don't even know how to describe it. It's just musically there's a lot going on, but it sounds like just a wall with him just quite a low production voice over the top of it. It's very, very good, that song. The song Why acts as a callback to all the industrial moments in Smile. They had a lot more like electro stuff in Smile. It's a bit more cut back in this one, so more organic sound, but Why has like makes up for that. It's a very, very industrially song. And then you move on to Scumbag, which let's see, Cane Hill are very new metalcore. Obviously new metalcore. Scumbag is a refined, concentrated bit of metalcore. It's 2 minutes fast. It's fucking ferocious as shit. And to hear a new metal bass tone, because obviously it's quite like a slappy, bouncy sound of the new metal bass, to hear that on like a hardcore song is really, really interesting. It's really, really fun. And I feel like Cane Hill as a whole have appeared and come up at the absolute perfect time, because they are perfectly aged for people who, like myself, were born into new metal. So you had your Korns, your Limp Bizkits, your Linkin Park, grew up with metalcore, and then you've got Cane Hill, which is sort of like the amalgamation of both those things. If you enjoy King 810, which they have a new album coming out next year, King 810, the latter day Suicide Silence, so I include the self-titled with Eddie Hamida, and the last album that they did with Mitch Lucker. which was Black Crown, and the one in the middle, I think it's You Can't Kill Me. Yeah, the last three Suicide Silence songs. If you like them, I reckon you'll dig this as well. Also, if you really enjoyed Upon a Burning Body, you'll enjoy Cane Hill. Cool. On to the next. And it is number 18 with The Wonder Years with Sister Cities. It is album number 6 for the American pop punk turned emo quintet. I actually don't know how many of them. I'm pretty sure there's 5 of them. I don't know. I've got quite a soft spot for The Wonder Years. Retrospectively, The Greatest Generation, which was released in 2013, is one of my albums of the year for that year. And then I've listened to that over and over again, and then I realised that they actually had another album out at the time, the previous year to when I found them, called No Closer to Heaven. And that is the musical interpretation of Depression. And it's great. Don't listen to them if you're having a bad day. It might tip you over. But otherwise, fucking great. Listen to them. So, with The Greatest Generation, No Closer to Heaven, this is the first album that I've been conscious of them releasing, if that makes sense. And for me, Sister Cities took a couple of listens because it took me a while to realise that this is not going to be The Greatest Generation Part 2. It took me a while to get that with No Closer to Heaven. No Closer to Heaven is, to me, a little bit more stripped back and starts to deviate away from the pop punk sound that Greatest Generation and before. That's how one of these built a name. No Closer to Heaven was going even more to the emo side. This now, I feel you can't really classify the Wonder Years as a pop punk band anymore. They are this new Midwest emo sound that's been propping up with Spanish Love Songs, who I mentioned before, Basement, who I reviewed a few weeks ago. That is who they are now, which is fair enough. And it's intelligent because for me, it is the pop punk kids who used to sing about the hometown and never getting the girl and pizza and all this shit. They're the ones that have grown up and they didn't have the industry to coddle them and tell them everything was going to be okay. Fall Out Boy. These are the kids who, okay, they got the fan attention, but major labels sort of I don't want to say ignore them because I don't know what label they're on, but I feel like they didn't get the money pumped into them the same way that bands like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco did. They just grew up and you know what? We'll just put up with it. This album is so dreary and painful as fuck. The song on here, Pyramids of Soul, has got one of my favourite, one of the bleakest lyrics I've heard in a long time. I drew a line in the sand with these goddamn worthless hands. And fucking hell, it just sounds like he's going to cry every time I say that. And it still feels like you're going to cry every time you hear it. The reason why, as much as I love the One That Is, the reason why it's a lot further down on the list than probably even I was expecting is because they really toned down the choruses on here. Whereas Greatest Generation and even No Closer to Heaven, I wouldn't say they relied, but they featured such big choruses to really get shows that singing response with the crowd. It's the era sort of music that gets in your head, which is what pop punk is known for. There's a lot less of that this time. It more feels like, at times, a musical story as opposed to a collection of songs, which, depending on your preference, is a good or bad thing. It's great for if you got the time to sit there and listen to it, or I know what I said before, I had it on in the background a lot. It's not really kind of album, except on the ones that are very much more like the old ones, where it's got big choruses like Pyramids of Salt and Sister Cities. It's not really one you can just find specific songs out of it. It's a song where you press play and you will listen to it all the way to the end. Don't even know I've got it. It must get lonely to me. So Dan Campbell, the lead singer, he's got a side project to Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties. Ours are difficult for me. To me, It Must Get Lonely sounds more like one of that kind of song because it is. like it's a little more upbeat compared to the rest of the album, and it's a lot softer on the ears. But then that's just me. It's still a really good song. The album itself is for the days where everything feels like it's in black and white, and you just want to have a cry out the window, and it's raining. Sister Cities by the One Years for fans of Jimmy Eat World, Modern Baseball, and the Get Up Kids. I'm going to drink more tea. And I do apologise for the fucking squeaky ass chair. Maybe Santa will bring me a new one. Cool. Number 17 is The Silence by Feed the Rhino. It is album number 4 from the English post-hardcore group, and it is their first since they reformed. I think it was tail end of last year they said they were reforming after splitting or going on extended hiatus, and I fucking hate that word, in 2015. I was quite gutted when Feed the Rhino split back then, because it was around about the time. So, Feed the Rhino, I think, was on album 3, which isn't the Red Eye, it is the one after that, I think. It's the Sorrow and Summon, I think? No, Sorrow and Sound. When that album got released, it was around about the time I was properly getting into, like, starting to get into music. So I was reading Metal Ham a lot more, was listening to the podcasts, just trying to get music from anywhere and everywhere. And Feed the Rhino were amongst some of the first bands I'd listened to from this, at the time, growing underground scene. So you had bands like, obviously, Feed the Rhino, The Defiled, Hawkeyes, Max Raptor. And over the years, The Defiled are split up, Hawkeyes are in a weird limbo. Max Raptor, admittedly, had just come back from having, I think it was, they had a year off just so they could get their personal lives all together, which is fine. And then Feed the Rhino said, yeah, we need to sort ourselves out as well. But, you know, it might not be a case where we'll come back. Eventually it did, obviously. And they either reformed tail end of last year or the very start of this year, and they basically got everything out in one go, which is fine. The frontman Lee Tobin on this album, he sounds fucking venomous, and he's got his screams sound like it's boiling blood. I don't know if that's terrifying. It certainly sounds terrifying to me. And the way his vocals sound, to me, they're quite unique, which I feel like in this day and age, it's quite hard to get you're the only one that sounds like this voice, because, like, just because of plethora of bands coming out, you get a lot of screams that sound similar, a lot of soft vocalists that sound quite similar. It's just the nature of the beast. You grow up listening to a band that you really like, you want to try and replicate that sound. Lee Tobin, for me, he's got quite an individual voice. And as much as he does sound like Hell in a Handbasket, the silence is, you can tell with this album they're trying to bring in a bigger audience. Because whereas before they used to have like very fast, aggressive, snappy songs with like the melodic choruses, this has now got arena rock sized choruses. Lee Tobin is really, really amped up the clean vocals. He's really like, he hasn't really softened out his voice. He's just got a better control of it. For songs like Time Wave Zero and The Fences, it's really evident there. It reminds me of like before then, the peak clean vocal performance I had for Lee Tobin was in a song called Black Horse, which is from the previous album, which is sort of like the equivalent of a ballad for Feed the Rhino. Very, very good song. You should check it out. The best comparison I can think of is maybe Chino Marino. That style of, for like his cleans, are very big and very powerful cleans. Much like Chino, well, much like Lee, I should say, Chino does sound like fucking anger words when he does the screams. So yeah, if you want the more traditional, fast, snappy, post-hardcore, more traditional Feed the Rhino songs, look at the song 68 and All Work and No Play Makes Jack a Dull Boy. Obviously, more Shining references. And he does sound fucking, as the joke with like Shining and all that, he does sound fucking psychotic in that song. All Work and No Play. I've been sitting on my foot now, it hurts. And the only other song I can think of is Featherweight, which was released before they had their split in 2015, and it is very, you can kind of tell that was written then. The rest of the songs are written now because it's a lot more adhering to the old school sound, whereas this, like I said, is, although you can tell it's Feed the Rhino, they are trying to bring in the more like outreaching audience. The and yeah, for earworm choruses and a very like Every Time I Die tinged guitar work, like the fast and like the, I don't know how to describe it, but which is great. You can hire me for guitar work if you like. That kind of like low rumble and then the higher end like shoot off. There's probably got a better word for that, but thick. A lot of that's in there, and if you are a fan of Funeral for a Friend, post Memory Humanity, so what's that? That's Welcome Home Armageddon, and this album that had, is it Paper and Verses and 1%, the later two ones before they split up. If you're a fan of that, and if you're a fan of Zokes, which is a underground English hardcore band, if you know Zokes but you don't know Feed the Rhino, I'll be very impressed. Or Glassjaw, which is the big name that I compared them to. If you like any of them, and if you want to you support British music, would definitely recommend Feed the Rhino with The Silence. And if that cunt could stop beeping us on outside my window, I'd be quite happy with that. I'm quite happy. I hate Christmas. Everyone wants to be with families and be with friends. Like, hey guys, let's all hang out. I'm like, no, hang out somewhere else, you little fucks. Just because there's a pub next door. Number 16. I almost called it In Waves then, but it's very much not. In Vain with Currents. Album number 4 from a Norwegian progressive death metal group. More prog, more death, more both. It is their first album in 5 years, and it took Matt Heafy of Trivium fame to, I say tell me about this album. He went on about it on his various social media because he's featured on the song Soul Adventurer. Now, I really enjoyed I was going to call it Silence of Snow. What's it called again? The latest Trivium album. That's the one I want to call it. I'm going to do a quick Google so I don't look like a massive knob. Sin in the Sentence. I knew it was something to do with S's. I really enjoyed the Sin in the Sentence, even though I can't remember what it's called. And I really enjoy what Matt Heafy's doing with his voice at the moment. I think he's finally got that grasp on cleans and harshes, and when to use them, how to use them, so he doesn't fucking blow his throat out. And so with that, I thought I'll give this a good old bash. And to be honest, Soul Adventurer is the song you want if you want to try and get into this album, because much like Between the Bear and Me, it is hugely progressive. It's fucking heavy as shit. And it's got one of my favourite things in music, and it's got a gigantic wall of sound. Like, Donald Trump, give these fellas a call. The soundscapes they've got in choruses on this album is fucking incredible. They only really do clean vocals for like the big choruses, which is fine for what I enjoy from this album. The song, and it's in Norwegian, so I'm probably gonna fuck this up. En Fongangen Tid. Also called Times of Your Part 2, which is just probably easier to call it that. The cleans on there and Origins, which is a lot easier to say. Although they are used a lot more in these songs than they are anywhere else, they still make sure this is a death metal album, even with all the progginess in there. It is not them going soft, it's not the Cumbercliptic album, it is very much very technical, very proggy death metal, there's always something that doesn't relent. They might have clean vocals, but they've got double kick drums, or they've got like a very fast, I can't remember the proper word, but the tremolo picking, guitar work. It's always, there's something in the background that's still going 19 to the dozen to make everyone aware that, hey, we're very fucking angry. Grr. They fulfill their necro, that's what they see, their necro quota with the last two songs. They have like a much more black metal sound, and I even think there's an organ on Standing on the Ground of Mammoths, which is fucking metal as shit. This pisses on saxophones left and right, and with the combined with like how powerful his cleans are and how dramatic the sound kind of gets. I keep making this comparison, but it does get kind of power metal-y, and like I said, I'm all about that. There's a lot of comparisons online to Borknagar. That's what they're called. Don't you at me. So yeah, and I've listened to a bit of them. I can see the comparisons. I think the lead singer from In Vain and the lead singer from Borknagar are brothers. So I feel like that's got something to do with why they sound a little bit similar. But if you are a fan of Borknagar or Ne Obliviscaris, again, I don't know too much about them. Listen to them for comparison. They do sound like, if you like one, you like the other. And again, if you like Ishan, where he can go from the very widdly diddly prog to the very bombastic extreme metal, you'll really enjoy this. Currents by In Vain, Norwegian pro death metal. Oh my lord, I need more tea. It's been a weird old year actually. Now that I think about it, it's been oddly proggy for me, which is odd and proggy. Just for comparison, last year, what was album of the year last year? For comparison, album of the year last year was Creeper, which is very much not proggy and very much not death metal. Cool. So, we're going to move on to album number 15 of the year. Ow! Fucking thing. Cool. So it is the band that brought me back into going to shows this year, and an album I very much did not expect to enjoy, and very much I felt like a part of me didn't want to enjoy it, and it kind of got me annoyed. It is album number 3 from the UK alt rock, pop rock, post-hardcore mess that is Don Broco, and the album is called Technology. And first things first, I am not the realist, but Hold On by Priorities is an absolute arse of a song. He on there where he goes, hold on. Sounds like a bored seal working at the Samaritans. It's so painfully bad, and yet for some reason, for anyone outside the core fan base, that is their legacy. That's what they're going to be known for. That's their one-hit wonder. And it shouldn't be. I think they've got a song with a fun name from one of their second EPs, which is very OG post-hardcore, and it's a lot of fun. It rhymes. That's all I remember about it. But for me, because of Hold On, and I have heard little bits of them here and there, I always thought they were part of what I've dubbed the undercut rock scene. So basically, anything that gets played on Radio 1, quote-unquote rock show. So you got Dead, which I found out split up this year. Hilarious. Dead, Twin Atlantic, Yumi at 6. I always thought they were part of that bubble of just not very interesting rock music. So you can imagine my surprise when I heard T-Shot song for the first time and thought the main riff was a Black Sabbath worship. Because that song fucking slams. And this album fucking slams. Annoyingly fucking slams, I will add. The riffs on this are fat, and I'm spelling that with a PH just because I'm down and edgy with the kids. I'm really not. my hip hurts a lot. The electronics on the album aren't cumbersome. I think they complement the rest of the album quite well, and they still install. Although there are times where it just goes very into the world of rock, the electronics make sure it's still got its place in like modern pop music. The the sound kind of the overall sound from the album borrows from a lot of places. So overall, you are drowning in this R&B beat, but at the same time, you got songs like "Greatness" that sounds like 80s new wave. "Pretty" and "Good Listener" have like little bits of funk here and there. Like I think songs like "T-Shirt Song," they've got very heavy riffs. Like I said, I compared it to Black Sabbath. And there are so many up and coming metal bands who are desperate to try to write a chorus as aggressive as the ones found in "Pretty" or in "Potty Mouth." Like "Pretty" for me is just, I have people quoting that at me for ages. Like, what the fuck is everyone talking about? And then, but this was before I listened to the album. I just heard "T-Shirt Song," went on Twitter. It's like, what the fuck is this band? Kept getting 8 Days a Week sung at me or spoken to me or whatever. Looked it up, found the song, and my fucking god, it is like, I kind of get like an 80s camp horror movie feel from it, from the electronics, and then again those big fat with PH guitar hooks in there. It is really, really great. The one thing I've read about is the vocal trade-off between lead singer Rob Damiani and the drummer Matt Donnelly. They got really well received in album number 2, and they've done a lot more of it on here. Matt definitely has a lot more, well, for me at least, from the brief instance I've heard of album 2, he has a lot more to do on this album. Despite all that, though, "Come Out to LA," his little bit in that, it's fucking unforgivable. I'm so sorry. Lots of people really popped for his little "Come Out to LA, come out to LA," like that faux. I don't even know that faux Jamaican thing. I think it's fucking shit. I'm sorry. Absolutely atrocious. If you are a fan of, I've compared these to Def Havana. That's the era. That's the era. That's a Spirit era. Bring the Horizon and the Young Guns. Except if the Young Guns were still good. That sort of bubble of, it's borderline pop music, but it's still got enough in there to be considered rock music. And if you haven't somehow already heard the Donny B album, do go check it out. It is annoyingly brilliant. Tea. I really hope Santa brings me a new microphone so you don't have to listen to me drink tea every 5 minutes. And swallow. Cool. So, okay. Album number 14 is... This one was a difficult one to describe and try and put into words, because it's a perfect circle with "Eat the Elephant." And because it's a Keenan project, made by James Keenan, you know, if you've ever had any experience with Keenan before, so that's Tool or Pussify or anything like that, you know there's just so much going on. It is just impossible. It is, I believe it's album number 4 from the American supergroup. It is him and I can't remember his name for this. Something like Matt Badowel. The 2 core members, and all I keep hearing about is how good Tool is. From people who are really into the world of rock and metal to more quote-unquote mainstream music fans, to podcasts, to videos, all I hear and all I see and all I read is how good Tool is, or Tool are, and how much like the person in question needs the new Tool album. Now, I've tried to listen to Tool a few times, and from what I've heard so far, it is very good. You've got, I had a song, I think it's just called H. And yeah, I had used to listen to that song a lot when I was growing up, when I was still, I don't even know what that was. When I was still getting my bearings together with music, I thought that was a very, very good song. But because, like what I said before about prog being very riddle diddly blah 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 blah, it's I've just kept putting them off. Like, I'll get round to them later. I'll get round to them later. I'll get round to them later. I think if you are similar to me and you want to give hashtag give Tool a chance, start with this. Start with a perfect circle because I feel like out of Keenan's project, this is easily the most accessible to new listeners of what he does and doesn't do with music. You, because of the huge atmosphere in this album, you completely lose yourself. Uh, Maynard's voice, it it so can be so delicate. It's so I can't remember what they're called, but there's a style of glass making where it's a ball and like a stem coming out of it. The stem is so pressurized, it is insanely strong. Like, I think there's a video of them like running it over and you cannot break it. But the glass ball in the middle is so very delicate. Maynard's voice is perfectly one of those things. I'm going to try and Google it as I carry on talking, but it can be so incredibly gentle and softly spoken, and at times be just the hardest thing you can ever imagine without ever having to go into death metal screams, or it's just powerful. He can put so much energy and so much strength into his vocal performance. I'm going to put in delicate glass. I probably won't get that. Delicate glass. Unbreakable. Nothing about that was helpful at all, apart from the Unbreakable film with M. Night Shyamalan. That didn't help me at all. Website's full of ads that slow out my computer. But yes, because it's one thing I found looking around for this album is there's a lot of criticisms that there's no big heavy song, and they make comparisons to other Perfect Circle albums that's come before Eat the Elephant. Personally, I don't think it would have fit because this album is very eclectic and it does like drown you in the sound. I don't feel like having a big heavy song would sit comfortably in amongst everything else. The song The Doomed to me is just the right amount of heaviness. And in that song you've got the perfect example of him bringing like the power into the voice without having to do screams or grunts or anything like that. Lyrically, it is a lot more straightforward than what I've known Maynard to do. It's less metaphorical, but because of this, you can take in the album and take in the weight of the album. It's got so much commentary on like society, politics, the wealth and class inequality. It is such a chill yet such a visceral album, such like a heavy sitting album. It's for someone who's just getting like just listening to the world of Maynard for the first time. It is such an oxymoron how something can be so, again, like I said, so soft and so easy listening yet so impactful. I feel like if you are keen on, no pun intended, if you are keen on Keenan's other projects, so Tool or Persephire, I'd be staggered if you haven't already moved on to a Perfect Circle. But I feel like if you like Keenan's work, you'll still really appreciate this. More modern Deftones, if you're a fan of what they're doing nowadays, last few albums. So, I think everything. I'd say everything from Diamond Eyes, that kind of thing. If you enjoyed that, so I think it's Koi no Yoken. I can't remember the other two. From there onwards, you'll really enjoy this. Also, the latest Carnival album, I think it's got Age of Symmetry. I didn't get on with that first time I listened to it because it was a lot more eclectic than the first album, Thermata. But the newer one newer Deftones and any other Kingdom projects, you really dig this. It is Eat the Elephant by A Perfect Circle. God, I've got to do so many things before I go home tonight. Album number 13. We're on 13? Yeah, we're on 13. It's album number 7, and it's from the wonderful world of power metal. We're finally at a power metal album. It is from the German band Powerwolf, and it's called The Sacrament of Sin. I'll briefly go over my history of power metal and why I'm having such a fun time with this. Manowar was the first album, or the first band I should say, that was properly, I'll say properly got me into the branches of heavy metal. So I grew up listening to obviously things like Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Motorhead. All, like, at the time for me it was very just like your bog standard heavy metal stuff. And I remember when I was, God, I must be about about 13, 14, when we went out to go into town and my parents put Gods of War by Manowar on in the car. And I'd listened to like little bits at home. And every time I listened to it, it was always the big choir orchestra sort of songs. I was like, this is gonna be boring and lame. It's orchestral, blah 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 blah. And at the time, my mum said to me, like, Manowar, one of the best in gothic metal. She was a little bit off, but bless her heart. So I thought, fine, yeah, I have no say. I'm the child. I'll sit in the back and mope. Gods of War ended up being still is now one of my favorite albums of all time, because I think like it is the gateway album, and everyone has a soft spot for gateway albums. And from there, obviously you had Manowar. Their bassist Joey DeMaio was at the time manager for a band called Rhapsody of Fire, who I really enjoy as well. And then from there I noticed that both Manowar and Rhapsody of Fire play this genre of music called power metal. What's that? And from there went into bands like Helloween, Blind Guardian, Gamma Ray. As I got older and started playing the Guitar Hero games, you had Dragon Force with Through the Fire and Flames. Got more into them, and to me, going back, I find that was peak power metal bubble. So going on, find a lot of the more European power metal stuff was always like preference over the stuff that's happening in the States. And then after a while, things just kind of got a bit boring. The newer Manowar albums just didn't really do anything for me, and then they started remaking Battle Hymns and Kings of Metal, and they had such a shit production job on it. Rhapsody got rid of Fabio Leone and Luca Turilli, and yeah, their newer stuff's okay, but just not as good as what it used to be. Same with Helloween and Gamma Ray. Blind Guardian, I think a couple of their songs in the last album I really enjoyed. And Dragon Force, I'd only say their last album was when they got back to being quite good again. And then I know everyone was going nuts over Sabaton. As good as they were, for me, they are a greatest hits band. I don't think I've listened to an album all the way through and thought, yee. And what was the other example? The only other power metal band I can say I've properly enjoyed from like start to finish albums is Wolf. So they did Evil Star, and I think Shark Attack is one of the best power metal songs ever written. And yeah, it just kind of got, overall power metal for me just kind of got a bit stale. And then out of the blue, I think I got like a sampler or something, the Powerwolf song Army of the Night from The Blessed and Cursed, something like that. It was a thoroughly good song. And when I saw that Powerwolf had a new album coming out called Sacrament of Sin, I thought I really did enjoy Army of the Night. It's super catchy, super theatrical, and yeah, why not? Fucking Sacrament of Sin is incredible. It is theatrical, but it's not stupid, which is such an easy trap that a lot of power metal bands I feel fall into. Having said that, like I just said, big Manowar fan. One of their album covers has them in loincloths. To give you an idea, what the album opens with church bells. That kind of gives you an indication of where they're going to go with the whole thing. The whole album is such a tongue-in-cheek commentary to Catholicism and just Christianity as a whole. And for me, the keyboards don't just play the part of the guitars and just like they give a big cinematic sound because they've got like the church bells, the organs, and more like symphonic elements. They just give it a big more like cinematic sound. But despite that, they still make sure kind of what Between the Bed and Media were doing. They make sure this is still a metal album and they maintain the metal part of power metal. For me, the vocalist Attila Dorn, I think he's like Romanian born, growing up in Germany. Like I said, it's a German band. He is an absolute treasure. He's got such a powerful voice and he's getting such a better grasp of English language. So, although you can tell it is like mildly broken English, I think that actually helps the album for some reason. I don't know why. That might just be like personal preference, but I think it just works really, really well. He's got such searing vocals on songs like Demons Are a Girl's Best Friend, which is a fucking great song. Oh my god, that song is so good. And then on the ballad, Where the Wild Wolves Have Gone, again, he can just build up and really, really let go with that voice. And for me, it's not the tinny kind of power metal vocal. And I don't like to use that word tinny because I feel like it's an injustice to people who use it. But the example I'll use is Tobias Sammet, he of Edguy and Avantasia, because I was going to put Edguy and Avantasia separately. Then I realised it was the same dude. Also, Gamma Ray and Hammerfall, they've got like the more higher end power metal vocal. To me, I do prefer the lower end stuff. So things like Attila Dorn, Powerwolf, Sabaton, Manowar. I kind of put Halloween in there as well, although he just got a bit more grittier voice. I prefer like the lower end sort of thing, even though I did just say I really enjoy Wolf. I can see why people compare this to Sabaton. I think if you do like Sabaton, you'll really, really enjoy Powerwolf. I would also compare this to Primal Fear, another big power metal band. And for me, Manowar have like cut down a lot on using symphonics. In fact, it was pretty much just for Gods of War that they used a lot of the big bombastic orchestra and that sort of thing, except for Crown and The Ring. So if you like this, like Sacrament Ascend does border on the symphonic power metal side of things, not to the scale of Rhapsody of Fire, but also it's not to just straight up power metal to the scale of everything else that Manowar has done. I think the album Gods of War is a really good in between, and it'll be a really comparison for this album. So if you like Gods of War by Manowar, if you like Primal Fear, if you like Sabaton, Sacrament Ascend by Powerwolf is your next place to go. Cool. Remember that time I reviewed that album and I gave it extra time and then I thought, wait a minute, it's actually really hard to put my finger on why it's so fucking good. Number 12 is Black Peaks with All That Divides. I won't go on too much because I literally reviewed it last week. And as I was listening, so as I was writing up the notes for this week and next, I've been listening back to all the albums in top 20 to make sure, like, yes, I definitely want to include this. I feel like if I'd given Black Peaks a little bit more time, or I hadn't like sat on it for ages and sort of like rushed it at the initial listen, this album would have finished a lot higher. Because it is just incredible. The sophomore album from UK's Next National Treasure, easily one of the most exciting bands in the UK right now. I still strongly say there is something for everyone, for every kind of fan base. If you are an underground music fan, if you are a mainstream fan, I say even if you're not a big fan of rock music, there's something for you here as well. And it further proves that rock music is neither boring nor dull fuck off, Ollie. Again, the sheer audacity to open with a song like Can't Sleep. It is just you devilish little boys, you. That sounded weird. Electric Fires for me is still one of the songs of the year. It would have to be a toss up between this and Disconnect by Basement for the song of the year for me. Will Gardner's voice could fill a fucking planet. Forget a stage, forget an arena. The way he can make harsh vocals still sound dramatic is a fucking gift that he's been bestowed. And it reminds me of Mika Ackerfeld from Opeth, or all four members of Mastodon, their vocal techniques just crammed into one dude. And the more I listen to it again, the more like little bits I pick up. So the post-rock atmospheres really do bolster the sound in the same way as what was I saying about before? I think I was saying about the Don Broker album. The electronics in there, they don't take away the attention from the album. It just sort of bolsters a bit. This is exactly the same. It just adds that layer to that wall of sound that like gets delivered in. Oh fuck! Just punched the microphone. And listen to it back a bit more. Liam Curley's drum work, it is unreal. It bounces between really technical jazz to very much more straight up, almost D-beat punk music. It's so very interesting. Like I listened to a few songs actually. We're just trying to pay attention to the drum work, and yeah, he does just do a little bit of everything. This album in whole manages to fit in so much without somehow sounding bloated, which I don't know why. I'm not journalist enough to be able to figure out why it is what it is, but still for me, a really fantastic album. I go into it a lot more from the episode last week, so feel free to go check that out, and if it does me lots of good, thank you very much. And if you are a big fan of Mastodon, I'd particularly say the newer stuff. So what's that? Once More Around the Sun. I'd even say The Hunter as well. I feel like I'm missing an album. I'm definitely missing an album. I must be missing an album. But yeah, if you like more modern Mastodon, Gajira as well, specifically Magma, more than L'Enfant Sauvage. I don't need that. Mild Kira is what I apparently put in. Biffy Clyro as well. More the, as last as I say, the more older stuff. Emperor Sound, that was the other album I missed. Biffy Clyro, not the newer stuff, because I feel like they have gone more into like a pop rock sort of world, Biffy, but they're older stuff, so Puzzle and Revelations, that to me, that kind of rocky, but yeah, it's very prog, there's lots of things going on, that kind of thing. Biffy Clyro, Gajira, Modern Mastodon, Black Peaks. Okay, and for the last album of this week, obviously, like I said, I'm doing 20 to 11 now, and the next week I'll do 10 till 1. I was going to try and do it all in one go, but I have a lot of things to do today. It is Here's to the Fatigue by Press Tomiko. It is album number 2 from the UK alt prog metal band. It's very hard to put a definitive label on Press Tomiko. It is a follow-up to Good Intent, which got released in 2015. Yeah, 2015. Following the Affinity EP, which got like a lot of people interested, and for me personally, I got quite hyped for it. So I listened to Affinity based on a recommendation from a podcast I was listening to at the time. The host on there was very much into this album, and for me at the time, Good Intent was a little bit too much. I enjoyed the album, but it was just, I pretty much picked up on 2 lead singles, which were Affinity and Family Ties. They are still absolute jams. But yeah, as a whole for me at the time, I might go back into it now. It was just a little bit too much for me. Personal preference. But I still want to keep an ear out for them, because I thought that maybe they would write something like the next album would be a lot more for what I want out of music. And so with that, they released their first single. I think it was their first single. If all your parts don't make a whole. Either way, the first three songs from the album were the first three singles, and it got me so invested into the album, and even gave it a cheeky little pre-order because I'm that kind of dude. And yeah, it is. This album is so earworm music. It is unreal. It's got essence of pop punk in there, lots of prog, a little bit of grunge, and just a dashing of thrash in there as well. There are hooks for absolute days, and it's to the point where it's not bouncy, but you would never ever compare this to nu metal. The three-part vocal harmony just adds layers upon layers upon layers to the sound. And because you've got like three people who can all sing, they've all got their own little styles and nuances. It means they've got such a range for the music. So not only can they do all sorts of things with their instruments, they can now do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with their vocal performances, and just give it a lot more. It's weirdly poppy yet so very very heavy. As I was saying about A Perfect Circle, where it's like heavy but not harsh. Musically, this is a very heavy album. Like I said, it's got little bits of thrash in there. It's heavy, but there is no point where there are harsh vocals. I think the angriest they get is Itchy Fingers, which is more of a yell or more of a shout. Apart from that, though, you've got the three-part harmony acting like often like a choir at some point, or like that gang vocal, and like the perfect examples of heavy without being harsh. You've got songs like Itchy Fingers, you've got songs like Quick Fix. A Quick Fix, just for the riff alone, should be in some kind of Hall of Fame. And then they end on White Knuckling, and to end on something that dramatic is fucking incredible. It's just got a big sweller sound. It really does finish the album off well. It's such an oxymoron of an album because it's the way their vocals are. You want to say this is a pop record, but the way the instruments are, you want to say this is a metal record. It's you cannot really. For me, I will be the first to admit I'm a huge genre Nazi. I need to give everything a place in this world. You absolutely cannot do that with Here's to the Fatigue, and it both infuriates me and interests me in equal measures. If I was saying before, the podcast I listened to at the time that like got me first interest in Preston Miko, they compared it to it's Weezer covering Meshuggah. And as weird and as fucking odd as that sounded, it's such a good comparison for the album. Being hugely technical, but hugely like not melodic, but like clean and so well produced. I would wholeheartedly agree, or wholeheartedly recommend this album to anyone, because it's similar sort of vein as Black Peaks. I feel like I'm not sure which is a better gateway to which. Whether if you enjoy Preston Miko, you'll really love Black Peaks, or if you really love Black Peaks, you'll really enjoy Preston Miko. But they kind of go hand in hand with, you can't just put like a definitive label on because there's so much going on at a time. For more like bigger names that you like, if you like this, you like that. Ruben, System of a Down when they were doing Hypnotize and Mesmerize, and also Billy Talent as well, because there are like a lot of bands that have like the vocal trade-off. Billy Talent is one of them. If you like those three bands, or any of those three bands, and if you end up liking the Black Peaks album, you'll really, really enjoy Here's to the Fatigue by Preston Miko. And at the same time, if you really enjoy Preston Miko, Here's to the Fatigue, you'll really enjoy All That Divides by Black Peaks. Full circle. Kind of. There's only two spots between them. Or one spot between them. Cool. I have rambled on a lot. I've been going on for over an hour. If you're still here, golf clap, golf clap. Next week, I will count down from 10 all the way down to the number one album of the year. Remember, if anyone says rock music is boring, feel free to kick them in the dick or the lady vagina. Just a quickly run down though. Number 20 for top 20 albums of the year. Number 20, Between the Bear and Me, Automata 1. Number 19, Cane Hill, Too Far Gone. Number 18, The Wonder Years with Sister Cities. 17 is The Silence by Feed the Rhino. Number 16 is In Vain with Currents. 15 is Your Donny B Boys, Don Brocco with Technology. 14 is A Perfect Circle with Eat the Elephant. Number 13 is Power Metal. Power Wolf with Sacrament of Sin. Almost forgot what it was called. Number 12 is Black Peaks with All That Divides. And number 11 is Preston Mika with his To Da Fatigue. Tune in next week, like I said, for 10 to 1. And until then, it's Boxing Day. We're listening to now, if it's post, this goes out then. So I hope you've had a good Christmas. I hate Christmas, so I don't mind either way, to be honest. And I will see you all, well, hear you all, speak to you all. I'll something with you all next week. Bye bye.